product provided by Nintendo. Okay everyone, today we might be spreading misinformation, so get ready, this one should be a fun one. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and I am looking ahead to the future of Xenoblade Chronicles. After having played Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition that I love so much, and experiencing one of my favorite gaming sections of all time with Chapter 13, I'm on the edge of my seat, literally. That would work way better with a face cam. With bated breath anticipating the next mainline entry for Xenoblade Chronicles. And at this point in time, I haven't played Xenosaga yet, but I know a little bit about it. Not too much, but a little bit about it. And there's a thought that's been crossing my mind. Monolith just can't seem to let go of Saga. It's referenced all the time in Xenoblade nowadays. Gone are the days of just having Cosmos as an optional rare blade in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now with Future Redeemed and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Chapter 13, they are more directly referencing it. Whether that be the radio scene and just name-dropping Dimitri in Future Redeemed, or from the Saga members of my community who always tell me about it, all the various references that can be found in Chapter 13. Some not even references, some just like straight-up things from Saga. But there's one element, one component I want to kind of zero in on here. And when it comes to this theory for Xenoblade Chronicles and its future, it's not something that is meant to be, like, canonically this character is Cosmos, anything like that. But I think in some way, the crew of Xenoblade X, and also specifically Elma, are supposed to like metaphorically be Cosmos in a way. Let me explain. And for this theory, it's going to be broken up into two parts, but the second part won't come for quite a while. I want to tackle my initial observations, my gut instincts, where just like my mind is taking me here in this video. Then after I play through the Xenosaga series, I want to revisit this topic, see if my opinions change, whether or not I feel better about this theory, or if it's not really something worthy of discussion. I think it'd be pretty fun. So where am I coming at this right now? Well, there's a few key things. One, let's just bear in mind the end of Xenosaga 3. Now, I don't have the context for all of that, hence the part 2 at some point in the future. However, to my knowledge, the ending of Xenosaga 3 is Cosmos drifting in space and eventually arriving at a new planet. I believe that planet is supposed to be Lost Jerusalem, essentially what they called Earth in Xenosaga. Though I think there's a ring there, and I think the crew on the White Whale 2 approaching the planet at the end of the game in Chapter 13 is supposed to parallel that. It's supposed to look similar. It's supposed to feel kind of samey by design. And when you look at the scene from the end of Future Redeemed, the little blue dot, initially people suspected that that was Cosmos from the end of Xenosaga 3 finally making her way home. But now with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, I'm firmly in the camp that that was the White Whale too, because the planet looks very similar. I talked about the ring here, if you're curious why there was no ring in Future Redeemed. So it just feels like a natural parallel to draw that, yeah, within the confines of Xenoblade and the IP that Nintendo and Monolith have access to, without having to make some kind of deal with Bandai Namco, yeah, within the confines of the story, that is the crew of the White Whale 2, in all likelihood. However, like symbolically, it's meant to also represent Cosmos. But the comparisons go a little bit deeper than that, and let me explain. And this is when it gets really funny, because the deeper you scratch on this particular itch, even as someone who is not well versed in Xenosaga, there's a lot that kind of lines up, and it's almost like too much to not be intended. Cosmos is a robot. They may use a different term in Xenosaga, again we'll get there when we get there. However, essentially, she is a machine, compared to everyone else who is human, or I imagine some alien race. The crew of Xenoblade X are mimeosomes, essentially these like machine bodies that they were meant to occupy until they recovered the life hold, where they could recreate their human forms and their human bodies and put their consciousnesses in that new human body. So the vast majority of humanity that is on the White Whale 2, besides necessarily one guy, they're machines at this point. So there's another parallel to Xenosaga 3's ending, where you have these people adrift in space who are machines making their way to this new planet. A planet, by the way, that has a ring that was seen in the post-credits scene of Xenosaga 3. And the big twist in Xenoblade X Definitive Edition is that the planet, almost certainly the same planet from Future Redeemed, again this video, well, that planet also has a ring. And if you just like turn the screen upside down down, it looks as if she's like coming in at a similar trajectory compared to like the White Whale 2. To me, these things matter, because one of the main things that Monolith have been doing ever since Xenoblade 3 is tying everything together. The games that were once really separate experiences that had like a few loose connecting threads, like, oh, you can hear Shulk at the end of Xenoblade 2. That's cool. However, you don't need Xenoblade 1 for anything in 2 to make sense, right? Vice versa. Then you get to 3 and it's like, oh, cool. Nia and Melia are here. Oh, it's actually a world combining the worlds of Xenoblade 1 and 2 in this Eternal Now. Interesting. And then with Future Redeemed, we have actual Shulk and Rex interacting with each other. And then in Xenoblade X, a game that we thought was more separate from the other Xenoblade games, unless you're a theorizing madman like me, turned out was also connected. And we just saw snippets of all the Xenoblade games in X Definitive Edition. Then, on top of all of that, right, on top of the fact that humanity are mostly just machines, and at the end of Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, they're floating to a new planet that has a ring on it in a very similar manner to KOS-MOS at the end of Xenosaga 3. On top of that, we have Elma. Elma is interesting. Elma is different. Elma is unique, but she's another piece in this proverbial puzzle. Not her Mimiosome form, right? The big twist in Chapter 12 is that Elma wasn't human. She was actually this extraterrestrial being. She was an alien the entire time, who came to Earth because her planet was destroyed by the same forces that destroyed the Earth, but she came to Earth because they were both descendants of ancient Samar to try and save them from what was coming, so that what happened on her planet didn't happen to them. Ultimately, it failed, kinda twice. However, the point is, the form we see through the marketing of Xenoblade X and throughout most of Xenoblade X isn't a true form. It's revealed to be this alien-looking form near the end of Chapter 12. However, she has a unique armor set that you can unlock that is shown in the cutscenes of Chapter 12. You can get that full set by itself, by the way, through crafting. Insane voice crack. But you can unlock that set that you see at the end of Chapter 12 for Elma through the crafting system, which I did because I'm a madman. However, and again, this isn't one for one, but when you take it in conjunction with all these other parallels, it really does feel intentional. Again, another point on the graph that by itself may not amount to much or just be a cheeky little reference. However, when you see all these points on the graph, they start to form a line. The outfit, the hair, the visual design of Elma in her alien form reminds me a lot of the version of KOS-MOS on the Xenosaga fandom page. Again, not one for one, but like in terms of overall design, it looks very similar to me. From the spiky bits around the chest, to the torso being mostly revealed, to having something on the forehead, to the color of the hair, to the style of the hair as well. Then also when you consider the actual role Elma has in the story. Whereas in Xenosaga, KOS-MOS was a robot alongside a bunch of actual humans, I think. Again, asterisk, I have to play Saga to be sure. In Xenoblade X, it's the inverse besides Al, where Elma is this strange space alien, but someone who has a biological body juxtaposed with a bunch of characters in humanity that are Mimiosomes. There's a lot of people out there, and I can perfectly understand this, who will believe that Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition Chapter 13 is a retcon to pre-existing lore, because Monolith have done retcons before. If you want one prime example of this, go back to Xenoblade 1 and then compare it to Definitive Edition of Xenoblade 1 and look at Alvis's, like, chain. It was a key in the original, but in Definitive Edition, it became, essentially, an Aegis core crystal. And it was made to pretty much tell us, the player base, that this dude is Ontos. And a lot of story beats from Chapter 13 in Xenoblade X can, with first impression, feel as if they come out of nowhere or left field, as if they came up with them last Tuesday. But there's so much little subtle foreshadowing, so many little things that, like, when you view them all in the context of the series on the whole, I'm not sure that I buy that it's all coincidental or that it wasn't planned out from the beginning to some degree. I'm sure a few details here and there probably changed, but I think this was their endgame for the longest time. Another little example here, again, not a smoking gun or anything, but just another little nod in the direction. Look at the 10-year anniversary artwork. Notice who's in the middle. It's not Rex or Shulk, It's Elma, in a position where she is not only equivalent to Rex and Shulk, but also center stage. Also, I'm pretty sure Xenosaga was more sci-fi compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2, which definitely did have some sci-fi components, don't get me wrong, but I think it's fair to say that Blade, at least, doesn't lean as heavily into the sci-fi elements and themes on a consistent basis compared to, say, Saga, at least to the knowledge that I have about that series as of right now. However, X is not the case, because it's so sci-fi that it's in your face. I mean, giant robots are a core mechanic of the game. It's just a bunch of little things that just keep adding onto a singular pile that makes it feel to me as if Xenoblade X, throughout various ways in different contexts, is supposed to represent like the modern day Xenosaga. A story that was never finished. To my knowledge, because people in my YouTube chat yap at me, Xenosaga was originally supposed to be a 6-part story. And a story that just didn't get expanded after Xenosaga 3 because of poor sales. To my knowledge. Again, I could be wrong on these individual specifics. I'm trying to argue the greater point here. That the story with Xenosaga was left unfinished, and the story of Blade up to now has been a prologue. Putting the pieces of the game on the board so that now going into the future, they can really now continue what they wanted to do. And again, maybe some details changed here or there, but it's my gut instinct that's telling me right now, this was all planned, this was their goal, this was their vision. Maybe you don't execute on the story in the exact same way you would have with Saga, and maybe it's just way more metaphorical, and instead of telling the story they wanted to in, say, Xenosaga 4, 5, and 6, they want to tell this new story, and this is just to represent, you know what, the Xeno stuff kind of all came together in a way, didn't it? Some far more literal and in your face, some more metaphorical. But we finally got to our new planet. Maybe we see KOS-MOS as a character in the future. It's possible, not likely, but it's possible. But what I think they wanted to do with Xenoblade X Definitive Edition is to have this full circle moment. Not just for Blade, but for Xeno on the whole. And to pretty much tell the fans of Xenosaga, hey, we haven't forgotten you, but the story goes on. Maybe I'm just talking out of my cheeks, but I think it's pretty fun to think about, and I think I'll be able to formulate a lot more thoughts and opinions about this specific topic after I play through the trilogy of Xenosaga. So stay tuned for that, because you know I'll be covering it. So stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below with if there's any other details you can add to this theory. Throw more onto the pile. I love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.